Hey everybody, it's your hospitality friend Glenn here with another live episode of the aforementioned No Vacancy Live. Thanks so much for spending time with me here today. I'm excited because today we're going to be talking about designs from new builds to reinventing existing buildings. We're going to have a real lot of fun. And I got to tell you, before we bring in our great guest today, and it's going to tie back to New Orleans in just a second, but the first time I was in New Orleans for a hotel industry event, I stayed at a typical select service hotel that we all know the name of. It's a family brand, but it was put into an old school warehouse. And it felt New Orleans. It was New Orleans. It just really connected to me, but yet it was a branded hotel. And I think at that moment, I fell in love with hospitality design. And my guests today really are shepherding that design through the designing process or helping to find the items to create these incredible designs. And the reason why I say New Orleans is because they just finished doing a big refurb at Caesars in New Orleans. I'm talking to Jocelyn Lurie, VP of Procurement, Throughline by IIG, and Sharon and Bilbeisi, SVP of Design with IIG Design. Hey, ladies, how are you today?
Hi.
Hey.
Very good, Glenn. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, so Sharon, when did you first fall in love with design? What was your moment? I know I came late to the party. I'm sure it was early for you.
It was pretty early on in my career, to be honest. I started off kind of as an architect, full-scale architectural background, that kind of design. And then I worked on one little small-scale project where we did a restaurant. We did the interiors of it. And then I was like, oh, that's what I need to be doing. Switched gears early on in my career, went into hospitality design, and I mean, I love it. Everything about it.
Yeah. And Jocelyn, when you were a little girl on the playground, where you're saying one day I'm going to do procurement, how'd that work for you?
No, I mean, not at all. I fell into the industry, honestly. You might be able to tell from the accent. I'm from South Africa. I was born there. I've been here for 10 years.
I would have sworn South Jersey, but what do I know?
That is it. That is it. People get confused, Glenn. People get confused. So yeah, I fell into it. And from the first day, I was an expediter at that time. And from the first day, I just fell in love with it. It just ticked all of my boxes. Yep.
I'm watching, I love watching construction projects as they go on for like new casino resorts and theme parks, because those seem to be the ones that people record. And it always fascinates me by all the steps the contractor has to go through, and then all the steps the procurement people have to go through, and not just create each individual column in a timely manner, but coordinate everybody's schedules so it's all incredibly seamless, which is pretty cool. And already we're going in a different direction than I expected to today. But what I thought would be fun, and now I'm addressing the audience out there, and if you're listening to our audio feed, I would love for you to download this PDF that I'm going to make available in the show notes so you could follow along with us. So I want to talk a little bit about, adaptive reuse. And I also want to talk a little bit about the differences when you have a new build hotel and all of that work. So we're going to start with one that is going to be opening, I think, in 2026, the Balladeer Hotel. Hey, Google it. You're going to see what it looks like now. And it's going to be amazing how much work is going into it. So Sharon, how do you turn a hunk of junk into a beautiful, spectacular place?
You're saying it doesn't look like this now?
It does not look like that now. And that's the cool thing, right? Because you're taking this piece of infrastructure that was being overlooked and could potentially be knocked down and turning it into something that's much more meaningful than building something from the ground up.
Yeah. This project right here, the Balladeer Hotel, it is a fantastic project. It's a tribute portfolio by Marriott, near and dear to my heart. I think what's near and dear to my heart about this is that this is near and dear to the community's heart. The community is so excited about this in Mount Airy. It's a small town. If you Google Mount Airy, you know what you're going to find out? This is actually the hometown of Andy Griffith. That's kind of what it's historic for. It's what it's famous for, but there's so much more to it. And those are the stories we want to tell with this project. We really dug in and we learned the depth of the community community's stories, the history of the town, the history of this mill that it sits in. And then we crafted this incredible narrative that now we're executing. It's under construction right now. And yes, we are going through all the things with a historic adaptive reuse project to make it come to life. And we're working with Jocelyn's team on it. It's really, really very cool.
Yeah. And, I love that it's Andy Griffith's hometown. I used to watch that show, of course, growing up in syndication. I'm not that old. There wasn't new episodes. How dare you say that? Me out there. Whenever someone says Mount Airy, Jocelyn, you'll have no understanding of this because you're from South Africa, but there was a place in the Poconos called the Mount Airy Lodge. And in the 70s and 80s, they had advertisements on TV. Every time I hear Mount Airy, I think, beautiful Mount Airy Lodge. It's like their little jingle that they have over there. Now it's a big, fancy, expensive casino. So Jocelyn, how do you think when it comes to procurement for a new construction project versus an adaptive reuse type of construction project?
Well, certainly. I mean, there's a lot of challenges with that. There's no doubt, right? But the good news is that this is where I just also hearing Sharon talk it through. Yeah. Even I don't even get that opportunity all the time. So this is where I can fall in love with the creativity from the other side. I get to bring it into tangible existence. I get to work through all those details. Sharon and her team are truly solutioning around that old building and all of that kind of stuff that goes with that. But they need our expertise to do that too, right? Let's keep it efficient. Let's keep it moving. And so that's where I really do. I feel I'm so lucky to be able to experience this kind of creativity and yet not be creative myself. Because let me tell you, Sharon would be horrified if she had to see me to put together a rendering. So yeah.
I can't even draw two stick figures.
Right, really that. Totally. And they imagine it, they can see it, in their mind's eye, etc. And then we get to come in from the Throughline team and actually bring it into existence, which is an incredible feeling. Yeah.
So what are we looking at here right now?
So this is the registration and the front entry, the view of Balladeer. Like I said, it's under construction right now. You can see the historic.
I got to say that graphics have gotten so amazing, you'd swear that this was.
Yeah, it's not built. This is a rendering. But this is, you can see the historic mill context. We wanted to really honor that, preserve that from the existing wood floors that we're salvaging and refurbishing to the open structure. And then we've got all of these fun little nuggets in here. So, storytelling is great, right? But there's a lot of layers of storytelling. It's become a buzzword in the hospitality industry. Everybody talks about storytelling. Yeah. We try really hard to kind of make that storytelling tangible. So it's not just, we're inspired by. Inspired by is great too, but you got to get deeper. You got to find those little nuggets, those little Easter eggs that we kind of pepper through our projects and create these soft branded properties. So, in this one, some of those stories of Mount Airy, deeper than Andy Griffith, there's a great, fantastic bluegrass history in the town. This was a textile mill back in the day. So we actually talked to locals. We got into their heads, understood what resonated to them, and kind of created some of these details in here. So,
the piece of artwork is representative of that as opposed to like gold records, which is what
Exactly. Right. So it's got some of that bluegrass background. You can see the thread running through it, tying back to the textile history, those sorts of things are all sort of woven throughout the project.
I love the original support columns in this and how that kind of forces you to be creative about the placement of all the elements within that space.
Yeah, indeed. That is, it is a space planning challenge from the beginning to kind of make it all work. This building wasn't designed to be a hotel from day one, right? A new build, you kind of have a structure that makes sense. This was an adaptive reuse, so you got to figure it out.
Yeah. I know. In building, well, today it's going to be a mill, but in 100 years, you see, it's going to be a hotel.
Yeah.
And from our point of view too, I mean, it's the negotiating around corners, tight corners, etc. We have to be able to know that from the get-go so that we're not running into issues when they're coming to install. So that does present a challenge, no doubt.
It certainly does. And you're also limited by a lot more rules because it's an existing structure. Sharon, how much is limiting? But on the flip side, how much does that liberating? Because I find that challenges begets incredible creativity.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what design is. Design is problem solving, right? And
Right.
you can have an empty box that you solve problems with, or you can have kind of rules, guidelines that you have to work around. So you've just got to understand your guidelines from the start and be able to adapt to them. So, I mean, I like those challenges. To your point, Glenn, does it make it harder? Sometimes, but does it make it, just another piece of the puzzle that you have to kind of work together and make it all come together? Absolutely. It's very rewarding.
Right. So Jocelyn, when someone like Sharon and her team come up with these designs, how does your role then interact with how you're going to bring this lobby space to life, for example?
Well, that's the secret for us. We try and get involved as soon as we can, so that we're aware of any budget constraints, etc. And Sharon and her team will put another guideline in there, and we'll give them that budget constraint so that they're designing from the outset. So we've got no slashing of their designs at a later stage. So that for us is really, really, it saved a lot of time. It saved a lot of frustrations for the design team themselves. And, we can really, really get involved with that as soon as possible. We also have got vendor relationships that we can leverage. Sometimes Sharon and her team need the vendors to be involved right from the get-go so that they can
if it's custom.
Correct, exactly. And so we've got relationships. We're like, I know who you can call for that, And so that's really where we found the sweet spot, our magic zone, as we call it. And the more that we work that, the better that gets, actually. Because now they realize we are a good resource, so they tend to use us a little bit more. So that's really coming together very, very well.
Well, I'm going to give you a couple of real world questions here based on the lobby photo. And again, click on the show notes if you're listening to this on audio. My guess is the seating and stuff like that is probably pretty easy to do, but I'm also guessing like the lighting fixtures, at least the chandelier, is probably more custom. So who's designing that? Then how do you go from that to who's going to build it and all of that kind of stuff?
So I'm going to say 90, maybe 98% of what you see on the screen right now is custom. All of this.
Even the chairs.
Yep.
Well, that's incredible, but I'm sorry to hear that, Jocelyn. You got a lot of work to do.
We better go.
Yeah, that holiday in Maui is not looking so good anymore.
But we come up with these designs and it's inspired by whatever it's inspired by, right? Like those light fixtures inspired by musical notes and, scales and things coming from that story that we created.
Right.
And then we work with Jocelyn's team to say, okay, we've got this out of the box idea that you can't just buy this. We can't just say like, hey, here's a model number, go purchase this. We have to then work with Jocelyn's team to say, okay, what vendors do you know that can do this? Who's been really good at, getting things like this done on time, creatively, getting it to site, and kind of figure it out that way. And of course, price it. You've got to go through that effort too.
Right. Jocelyn?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. We would be, for a piece like that, for the chandeliers, for sure, we would definitely lean into relationships that we know that they've produced similar type of lighting at a luxury hotel of a similar sort. I mean, we know who we can rely on to do that, and we can trust to actually not only create the shops and the submittals and all that kind of thing for approval, but actually then create the actual result that suits the design intent perfectly.
That's pretty cool. All right. So what I want to do now, sorry, Sharon, that was a mistake right there. What I want to do right now is talk a little bit about the rooms. Sharon, how did you not only figure out like the footprint for these things? Because again, you're dealing with a box that is probably not designed for the right amount of rooms and the right amount of square feet and all of that. And then how do you think about this design approach in general?
So your first point there, that the building wasn't designed for this, 100%. And
right, because you don't want, and you also don't want to have 100 different room types.
Yes, so, correct.
Right.
the property doesn't want to manage that. It's impossible to design that. It just, so much room for error if you do that. So
yeah, I remember being at multiple hotels where in the corner there's space around a giant circular support beam. It's like the weirdest design things, and I've seen it in multiple properties where you could like almost hide behind it, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no purpose in it, and it just wastes space. And that's from a new build. I can't imagine challenges you have with something that's already there.
Right. I mean, we spent a lot of time at the beginning of this just poring over those floor plans and trying to figure out how to take the shape and the footprint and the structure of this building and fit a hotel into it, fit guest rooms into it, fit guest bathrooms into it, and work around structure and work around all of those things. What we came up with ended up being, a fantastic solution. And we actually were able to grow the key count from where the owner previously thought it was going to be. And, obviously that translates to lots of great things for lots of people to kind of get that to happen. Mm-hmm. But it's a process for sure.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So, Jocelyn, when it comes to the bedroom now, at what point of the process are you at? Because if you're opening in 2026, you're probably in it, but not necessarily all the way in it, or are you?
No, we're not. We're actually model room. The model room review is coming up shortly. We're going to have all of that, look at the coordination. Mm-hmm. We're also, of course, going to go into that production pricing right now, which, right now the market is with tariffs, etc. It's a little bit high tension. So we're looking at that. What are the best vendors to actually produce this now in the time frame that we have, and still remain in budget. So that's where we are right now with that.
You really make it sound like a great job, by the way, Jocelyn.
It is the best job. I am a self-professed FF&E nerd. I'm honest about that.
I love
it.
What you're really into is you love solving these puzzles, right? How to do the coolest thing that matches specs at the best price and get it there at the right time. There's so many levels. It's like you're like, hey, forget about you, Rubik's Cube. You ain't got nothing on trying to get a hotel.
No, and I think a lot of procurement is about, maybe being the hero of the story, like the owners, the designers, the vendors. You actually get to be that facilitator across the board. And when you find that sweet spot, it's kind of special. So I love it.
That is pretty awesome. All right. So the Hotel Thanes Tribute Portfolio property, again, Tribute Portfolio, we're really talking about that today because you all seem to specialize. Well, not specialize, it's a huge practice, but you have a lot of business when it comes to these tribute properties. Sharon, how did you guys seem to be getting in there with so many of these types of properties?
So it definitely is a niche for us. We think our niche in the market is really in these boutique brands, these storytelling driven brands, and whether it's tribute or we have a lot of tapestries, curios, autographs, independents, all of those things that kind of fit into that narrative driven soft brand boutique projects. That's really where we see ourselves shine, is creating these narratives, bringing them forward. We've had some great luck with good relationships with the brands and, hoteliers, of course, kind of coming together with these.
And I could also attest that their principal, who I've known for more than 20 years, she was in this then, really cutting edge ahead of people. So I love that you're very focused on this part because, Sharon, it's got to be fun. While there's nothing wrong with construction prototypes from the major brands, this is a chance to really exercise your creativity and have a lot of fun. And now I'm going to be in, I think, 2 places in one time. Look at, because it's the same.
Look at you.
So tell me about this particular project and what state you're at.
So this one is in Park City, Utah. We're talking ski country now here. It is an existing property that is being rebranded, reflagged, and will become a tribute. It sort of started out, frankly, as a small pip related to the reflag, but then the owner took a little bit more of a broader look at what the property wanted to be, what the market demanded. And again, we, had to come up with the soft brand, work with a branding company to kind of create the narrative.
And my guess is, without knowing anything, it was probably a branded hotel that had passed its life expectancy And it was a really great opportunity to reinvent the property. And instead of going from, like a 4 to a 6, you could take it from a 4 to like an 8 and stay within that category that you're looking to be in with the tribute type portfolio. Right, Sharon?
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty much spot on. I don't think it actually had a branded flag before, but
No?
it was otherwise, you're pretty spot on. Pretty good.
Yeah, I just think, again, this is why I love these things. And there are a lot of brands that are coming out and a lot of independent folks as well that are taking some of these old buildings and breathing exciting new life into them. I just ran a podcast last week of a property in Santa Cruz that was 60 years old, but it celebrates that mid-century modern in a really fun and creative type of a way that helps reinvent the property for a modern audience while still retaining the history and the legacy of where it came from. And by looking at this design, I get that same sort of essence too, that you're honoring the history of that area and allowing the property to be ultimately what it probably should have been 40, 50 years ago.
Right. Yeah, that is 100% the case.
Yeah. So look at this patio area out here. This is absolutely beautiful. Tell me what you're envisioning here.
So this is, so first, again, we're in Park City, Utah. It's cold. That's kind of the nature of things here. This is actually a heated patio with some radiant heat in the floor. That's a hot tub in the background. We got a fireplace out there. I mean, this is a place that we imagine people are going to spend their days on the slopes or out on the trails or doing whatever they're doing around town. Come back and really just settle in, enjoy this space. I don't want to call it a party space, but it's the active space. It's the social life of the hotel. It's really kind of a place where, sure, you could be in your room, you could be in the lobby, but this is just such a great space that this is where those connections are made. And that's a fantastic mural on that back wall. That's one of those great stories where that is not inexpensive to create a mural like that by a local artist, but so important to the story, to what this property wants to be, the local arts community. Again, working with with Throughline on this, we were able to make that piece kind of the signature piece of the art package, and budget wise kind of work through other pieces coming in a little bit less, so that where we have the impact, that's where we put the dollars to.
Yeah, Jocelyn, that's an interesting thing. You got to really balance that budget to have that high impact thing that defines the space while also making sure all the elements support that story, and you can't necessarily cheap out on it. So how was your approach to trying to balance all of those needs for the owner and designer?
Well, that's why getting involved early is important, right? That's key, because that's when we can actually add the most value. And in this hotel as well, it's actually a busy hotel that we've got seasons, a busy season that we have to take into account. So with the renovation, we've now got a whole lot of other factors as well that are, if we waste money on rooms being out of service, she has less money to spend on what she needs to as well. So there is efficiencies here that we've been able to do as a team that I know has really quantified in dollars that they can spend where they want them. And that's really that's again, the creativity that I get to add to the mix.
It really is. Now, Jocelyn's mentioned several times, get them in early in the process. And the fact is, I've been hearing this my entire career, and I know owners and developers have sometimes a hard time getting in that cycle, but it really saves money in the long run. It might seem more complicated and might not seem like you're, the right thing to do, but it is. I know I never worked in a hotel day in my life, but all of the hoteliers I know say the exact same thing. Get in there early. So hopefully you'll take that message away from this particular show. Sharon, back to that design element of things. How are you thinking these days, generally speaking, about room layouts and satisfying guests' comfort and needs in rooms?
So the room has to be a step ahead of the guest. We always say the room has to anticipate what the guest needs before the guest has realized that they need it. It's just there. It's already at their fingertips, whether that's, where the light switches are, or, how to make sure that the drapes are closed. And so you get blackout conditions in the room, or you get up in the middle of the night and you didn't think you needed a night light to find the bathroom, but you did, those sorts of things.
Yeah. Sorry. It just had me, I just thought back to my younger year when I'd come back with my own blackout conditions to the but
that's different.
Yeah. Jocelyn, one thing she said is like light switches and stuff like that. I'd like you to talk to every lighting manufacturer on there. Let them have a summit in Geneva and figure out where to put the light switches on all of them. Because I'm getting real tired of sticking my hands up lamps for no reason. Nobody's satisfied. So, not even the lamp, which is very sad. And the other thing that I like to complain about, faucets. Could you get them to angle it out so the water hits the middle and I'm not splashing my hand against the porcelain?
I'm taking notes.
All right, thank you.
I got it.
Right, so, obviously, I'm only half joking. But how do you think about some of these things to make sure that those anticipated needs are actually met in real world conditions?
Yeah. Well, this is why working as well with the design team closely, you can share that information because you've got lessons learned, right? We're probably a company that's well known for our internal lessons learned. We do that constantly. So when we run up against things, or particularly in a building that might be renovated, or you are limited by what you can do intuitively then, because you've got, do we rewire everything or do we, try and work around that? So that's what we would do constantly, is share that kind of information and knowledge, and do the best we can to try and keep it intuitive for you, Glenn.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, because the older I get and the more hotels I travel in, the more I want them to be distinct, but kind of have the same kind of vibe to them in terms of where the light switches are and how much lighting there is and the TV location, just that kind of stuff. But
so that's where model room is so important, and we go to those model rooms and we spend so much time and often, again, working with Throughline, we're able to do like one vendor in one model room, another vendor in another model room, and you can test things out, right? I mean, if we walk in the model room and we as the designers can't find the light switches, okay, and then we have a problem. We need to sort that out.
Right. It's also really just important for just understanding how the space is actually going to function in real world conditions. I've seen this, and again, a lot of my hotel owner friends tell me that you have to have the model room. It may seem like it's an unnecessary expense, but you work out so many things in the lab before you spend a lot of money. And sometimes you make mistakes when you spend all that money, and then you wind up leaving it in a room, and then it winds up creating a little bit of a sandpaper moment with guests, a little bit rough for them. Right, Sharon?
Absolutely. You want to fix it before you do it 200 times or 300 times, or, it's just, absolutely. There's no telling how much value comes out of a model room.
So where do you continue to find inspiration from, Sharon? Because you're doing all of these projects, and I always wonder where creativity, seems to run dry. Musicians only got like 10 years in them. I was washed up 5 years ago, that kind of a thing.
So every project is unique. We don't have a style as a firm, right? They all kind of have their own identity. We like to say that the project drives the identity. So that inspiration, that storytelling comes from our first phase. We spend so much time crafting a story before we design anything. We almost don't design anything until the second phase. We do local immersions. We do a lot of research. We get to know, of course, the owner's desires, the brand's desires, but also really just what the project wants to be because of its context. And context is a very broad
I got
word.
A question for you based on that. Any fun surprises in adaptive reuse? And the reason why the context is, one time I was doing an interview, many of you have been with Carl Wren of Concord, for example, where I think they pulled up a floor and they found an amazing original floor that they couldn't even believe was covered over. And then that kind of reframed their whole idea on how they were going to design that space. So anything fun and interesting like that?
Love those unexpected moments. Yes.
Because there's too many of them. Like you open something up and then everyone says a curse word that Jocelyn swore she wasn't going to say.
I mean, those happen too, right? But the one you're describing is the best kind, that demo. And yeah, you find, a covered terrazzo flooring in a historic project, for instance. And you're like, well, forget the spec of whatever we were going to put here. Right. This thing's incredible. Like, why wouldn't we celebrate this? Yeah. And you just figure it out. You adapt, you change the project around. Hopefully it's not too unraveling, but often that can be a huge cost savings to owners too, that they didn't know they had this in their building.
Not only that, but if the story is tightly connected to that space already, it might be an enhancement to the story you're already trying to tell. So
yeah, 100%.
I love that. All right, before we go, Jocelyn, any final words on Throughline by IIG and any procurement stuff?
Well, I mean, just to say again, yes, this is a fun job. And I know you can't go to university or college to study it, but at the end of the day, if you have some design kind of ideas, but you really can't design, hit us up. I think that'll be the way to go.
I have to put you guys through your medal because Mike is asking a question right now. How do you handle owners that want their way when it makes more sense and more cost effective to do it your way, essentially? So how do you get people to to step into the light and see it?
I mean, I guess depends kind of on the specific circumstance, but we're always willing to, hear out our owners. And there's always, there's no one size fits all, answer in this industry. There's multiple ways to skin a cat, as they say, right? So we'll evaluate the merits of it. If it has merits, I mean, we're certainly willing to respect that and to go that way. We also, the flip side is we explain the whys behind what we do. We don't do it arbitrarily. So, oftentimes if we can have that dialogue, then owners will understand where we're coming from and we come to an agreement one way or the other.
Yeah, I love it. And Sharon, how can we learn more about you folks over at IIG?
Oh, I mean, our website, our social media, there's plenty of ways to do that. Reach out anytime.
This episode you're watching right now.
Right now, right? We go to all the design shows, all the, industry events and whatnot. We're always happy to talk more.
Awesome. I want to thank you both for being here today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I want to thank all of you guys for being here today. You're going to want to rewatch this one, particularly if you're listening to it. You're probably going to watch it, but if you're listening to it, show notes, I got you covered. But make sure you check us out on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all those kind of places. And remember, guys, you've got one life, so blaze on and have a great day. See you guys tomorrow.